Well, it's the moment that many have been waiting for. On Tuesday, early Tuesday morning, the news officially broke that officially Bill O'Brien would be heading to the New England Patriots. It had been rumored for weeks. He's going back to do his old job, doing the same job he did at Alabama as offensive coordinator, which now means Alabama has lost both its coordinators in the offseason. Joey, this isn't the first time we've seen this happen at Alabama under Nick Saban. It's not necessarily ideal, but why is this not also necessarily a huge problem for Alabama either, that it's going to be going through two new coordinators this offseason?
Yeah, it's the sixth offensive coordinator. Whoever's hired will be the sixth offensive coordinator in 8 years under Nick Saban. So it's kind of been almost a revolving door over this past over half a decade now. But it's not that big of a deal, I don't believe, because this really is going to there's a lot of different offensive coordinators on the table and their different styles right now. And Alabama can kind of pick and choose what type of offensive philosophy they want to move forward with. There's a couple of candidates out there that are very run heavy, and so you could see you can see Alabama possibly go back to that 2009, 2011, 2012, like those rush heavy offenses. Or you have a guy like Joe Brady, or Jeff Levy, two guys that are pretty pass heavy type offensive coordinators that have studied under big guys. Joe Brady obviously did fantastic with Joe Burrow during his Heisman Trophy and national championship season at LSU. Levy, of course, was a disciple of Heupel. Josh Heupel, that being over at UCF. He also coached at Ole Miss. So it's going to be really telling which offensive coordinator Alabama goes with. Their list is obviously much deeper than the few guys I just described, but I think it's going to be really telling as to what direction Nick Saban wants to take this offense, because especially, you're losing Bryce Young, you're losing Jahmyr Gibbs. You do have Jermaine Burton coming back. You have a lot of really big offensive linemen coming in. I think their average is 6'6", so they're all pretty big offensive linemen. So with those, you can develop them to be either pass blockers or run blockers, depending on what type of offensive line you want and what type of offense you want to run. So to avoid talking all day, I really think it's going to be very telling who Nick Saban picks, just because they really have the personnel and multiple options at their disposal moving forward.
Yeah, I think that, both Pete Golding and Bill O'Brien were guys that maybe Alabama fans wanted to see leave, but that it's not going to be as seamless of a transition maybe as they think, or that really when you look at Alabama's numbers, they were still towards the top of the country statistically on offense and defense the last couple of years. It maybe wasn't at the perfection level that Alabama fans are used to, but it's not going to be a huge problem just because this has happened under Saban before and he knows how to handle it. And I think on offense, like you mentioned, Bryce Young is out. It's going to be a new quarterback. We still don't know who that quarterback is going to be. I'm sure we will be talking about it and discussing it and analyzing it all spring, summer, and fall. But this new offensive coordinator will have the chance to work with a new quarterback instead of an old quarterback having to learn a new system. So, and then on defense, you mentioned the offensive coordinators Alabama's gone through a lot. Saban hasn't gone through as many defensive coordinators. So I think this is going to be a transition, but there are a lot of Saban disciples, like the term used earlier, on defense around the SEC and around the country, guys who have trained him under Alabama, whether in a defensive coordinator role or as an analyst, that have learned from him and then gone on to other Power 5 schools that could come back. And so there are going to be some changes and adjustments, but I think as long as you still have Nick Saban at the helm, that it's ultimately not a huge problem for the Crimson Tide. But it's definitely going to be a storyline to follow in the coming weeks to see who Alabama is going to hire. And I'm sure once spring football starts, we will talk to the players about what the transition is like with the new coordinators. But that will wrap up today's a little bit lengthy, just a minute. Thank you so much for watching.